My name is Karen. I'm 36 years old, and I've just finished psychological treatment after a devastating emotional trauma involving my ex-boyfriend Lucian. I met him 3 years ago when I walked into his jewelry shop to have my bracelet repaired. I was immediately struck by his handsome looks, warm smile, and the delicate way he handled things. From the first meeting, we got to know each other and soon started dating. Lucian was incredibly attentive. He remembered every little habit and preference of mine, never raised his voice, and was always gentle and patient with me. I used to think I was the luckiest woman in the world to have found him, but there was always one thing that bothered me. In the 2 years we were together, I never once met his family. I brought it up several times, especially around holidays or his birthday. But Lucian always had an excuse. He said his family was difficult, and he needed more time to convince them to accept our relationship. At first, I believed him, but as time went on, I grew weary. I felt sidelined, like a secret he wanted to hide. I wasn't getting any younger. I wanted a real family, a home. One day, after feeling thoroughly disheartened, I decided to break things off. Lucian immediately grabbed my hand and promised.
Just give me a few more days. I promise I'll talk to them.
Looking into his earnest eyes, I couldn't help but give him one more chance, and he kept his word. 3 days later, Lucian took me to a French restaurant. He had prepared everything. Red roses, a violinist playing nearby. Under the soft candlelight, Lucian knelt and proposed to me with a ring he had crafted himself. I cried, tears of happiness. I truly believed I was stepping into a new chapter of my life. As we were dining, the TV at the bar suddenly aired breaking news about a passenger plane explosion. 70 people were confirmed dead, reportedly due to a technical malfunction. It was horrifying, a true disaster. I could hardly believe what I was hearing. But Lucian, he smiled, a soft, almost amused smile.
Why are you smiling? 70 people just died. Aren't you upset?
It was just a subconscious reaction. I didn't mean anything by it.
At the time, I brushed it off. But I remember feeling a chill run down my spine when I saw that smile. A week later, we held a small, private wedding ceremony at an old church. I wore an ivory wedding gown, and Lucian looked dashing in his tuxedo. He smiled at me like he did the first day we met. After reciting our vows, we were just about to exchange rings when the police suddenly stormed in. They handcuffed Lucian right there, accusing him of serial murder and insurance fraud. I collapsed on the spot when the officers told me that Lucian had already been married. His wife had been among the victims of that plane crash. After noticing suspicious circumstances, investigators dug through the plane wreckage and passenger belongings. In Rita's luggage, Lucian's wife, they found evidence, hand-drawn bomb schematics, receipts for homemade device materials, and a freshly signed life insurance policy listing Lucian as the sole beneficiary, signed just days before the flight. Lucian had planned to kill his wife, and in doing so took the lives of 69 other innocent people. And he had used me, unknowingly, as part of the facade. It was revolting. I was interrogated for days. I turned over my phone to the police. My loving texts became evidence. I had no idea. I hadn't done anything wrong. All I did was love and trust the wrong person. Fortunately, there wasn't enough evidence to charge me. They couldn't prove I had any knowledge of the murder plot. Lucian was sentenced to death. Before his execution, he requested to see me one last time, but I refused cause want any part of him ever again. I spiraled into severe psychological distress afterwards. I had recurring nightmares of dozens of dead victims surrounding me, tearing at me, demanding me pay for what happened. Even now, after completing my therapy and beginning to rebuild myself, I still hesitate whenever someone tries to ask me out. I don't know when or if I'll ever be able to love again.
After 5 years as a delivery worker, I never thought a single order could cost me my life. That night, close to midnight, I received an order for 2 servings of chicken rice. The delivery address was a house on the outskirts of the city. Even though I had a bad feeling about it, I had not received a single order all day, so I gritted my teeth and accepted it. When I arrived, I saw an old, desolate house standing alone in the middle of the woods. A cold gust of wind blew against me, sending shivers down my spine. I knocked on the door, but no one answered, so I took out my phone and called the customer.
The door is unlocked. Bring it inside.
I hesitated, but pushed the door open. The musty smell immediately filled my nose, making me grimace. The air inside was cold, as if no one had lived there for a long time.
I have your delivery. Is anyone here?
At that moment, the sound of a knife, chopping down on wood, thick, heavy, and sharp, resounded from a room inside. I jumped, my heart pounding. Carefully, I tiptoed toward the door, and the scene before me made my stomach churn. A man was chopping a human arm. On the table, severed body parts were laid out in pieces. I screamed in terror. The thick, metallic scent of blood choked my throat, and I collapsed onto the floor.
You harmed someone. I have to call the police. Stay and help me, or I'll put you on this table next.
My entire body froze at his words. Fear forced me to turn back and help him pack the body parts into black bags. Each time my hands touched the cold, lifeless flesh, it felt as if thousands of insects were crawling over my skin. After we finished cleaning up, he ordered me to dispose of the black bags. Trembling, I carried them to a deserted riverside, tossing each one into the water before hurrying away. But as soon as I turned around, the man was already behind me, gripping a knife tightly, his cold eyes staring into mine.
You did well, but you still have to die. I did everything you asked. Please let me go. Let you go? You've seen everything. You can't live. I promise I won't tell anyone. Just let me go. The only way to keep a secret is to take it to the grave.
With that, he lunged at me. I dodged just in time, the blade grazing my arm and burning my skin. Enraged, he raised the knife again, his grip tightening as he thrust forward. On reflex, I grabbed his wrist, stopping the blade just inches from my face. His strength was terrifying. I used all my force to shove him back, making him stumble. Seizing the moment, I grabbed a rock from the ground and hurled it at his head. He cried out in pain, clutching his head as he staggered. I sprinted to my car, speeding away as I called the police. But by the time they arrived, the man had disappeared without a trace. A few days later, I returned home only to be greeted by a horrifying sight. A bloodied human arm lay in the middle of my floor. On the wall, a message was scrawled in dark red blood. You will have to disappear.
Did you really think you could escape me?
I spun around, locking eyes with the man. He aimed a gun at my head.
Please, I'll give you anything you want. I want your life.
In that instant, I grabbed his wrist, struggling to wrestle the gun upward. A gunshot rang out. The bullet struck the ceiling, sending dust falling around us. I jolted, loosening my grip, and he kicked my stomach hard, sending me crashing to the floor. I tried to push myself up, but before I could, his heavy foot slammed down onto my chest, pinning me against the cold tiles.
Don't waste your strength. You won't escape.
At that moment, my hand brushed against my phone in my pocket. Without hesitation, I yanked it out and hurled it at his face. With every ounce of strength left in me, I scrambled up, shoving him aside as I dashed toward the door. But before I could get far, a gunshot rang out. A searing pain shot through my leg, and I collapsed onto the floor.
You little rat. Let's see where you'll run now.
I refused to give up. Gritting my teeth, I crawled forward. Another shot rang out, piercing my other leg. I screamed in agony as my body convulsed and the world blurred.
Say goodbye to the world.
Suddenly, the door burst open with a loud bang. The man froze, eyes widening in shock. Before he could react, a bullet shot straight into his chest. Dark red blood slowly spread across his shirt. Police officers swarmed in, surrounding the house. I exhaled shakily, my body going limp as I shut my eyes in relief. It was finally over. I was rushed to the hospital, my legs soaked in blood. Though the killer was dead, the memory of that night haunted me every second of my life. The images replayed in my mind like a never-ending horror film with no escape. People often dreamed about magic lamps and 3 wishes. But what if those wishes turned into curses? I was Kevin, an office worker living alone in a small house in the suburbs. That day, on my way home from work, I passed by a roadside dump and was drawn to something glittering in a pile of old junk. It was a porcelain teapot with chipped glaze and faded patterns. But something about it felt like it came from a fairy tale. A faint light seemed to flicker from it, strangely pulling me in. I picked it up, brushed off the dust, and decided to take it home as a decoration for my bedroom. That night, I dreamed of a soft whisper in my ear.
Rub me. 3 wishes will come true.
I jolted awake. The room was still pitch dark. The teapot sat quietly on the shelf. I turned on the light and stared at it, a curious feeling welling up inside me. I picked up the teapot, thinking of the old tales I had read, and rubbed it. Nothing happened. I laughed at myself, feeling silly, and went back to sleep. The next morning, just as I stepped out the gate, the neighbor's dog rushed out, barking furiously.
Why don't you just drop dead?
When I came home that evening, I froze. The dog was lying stiff and lifeless right in front of the house across the street. A strange, indescribable feeling crept over me. Later that night, after a shower, I turned on the TV and began watching the news. They were reporting a terrorist group holding 20 hostages in a shopping mall.
Why not just kill them already? Why bother taking hostages?
And minutes later, the next news update came in. All 20 hostages have been killed for unknown reasons. I shivered, frozen in front of the TV. Could this really be a coincidence? I tried to recall everything and suddenly remembered the teapot and the strange dream from the night before. At that moment, I panicked as I remembered the phone call with my mother at noon. In a fit of anger, I had shouted, "Did you live just to make my life miserable?" I grabbed my phone and called her over and over, but no one answered. In despair, I ran to find the teapot, determined to destroy it. I tore the room apart, but it was gone. The teapot had vanished without a trace. Suddenly, my phone buzzed with a new message. It was a message from my aunt. Your mom is gone. On her stomach was carved, third wish.
Have you ever done something so terrible that you created false memories to hide the truth? I am Luna, living with my husband in a suburban neighborhood. That afternoon, while watering the flowers, I noticed signs that the soil in the garden had been disturbed, as though someone had tried to bury something beneath it. I immediately grabbed a shovel and dug up the soil, but found nothing.
What are you doing?
At that moment, the new neighbor, who had just moved in, walked by and struck up a conversation with me. I was just planning to plant some flowers. Is there something you need?
I've just moved here and don't know anyone. I saw you in the garden and thought I'd come over and chat for a bit.
After he said that, he approached and touched my hand, which made me flinch and step back in fear. Just then, my husband returned home. I quickly said goodbye to the neighbor and went inside with my husband. That evening, when I told my husband, he seemed irritated and said I was being overly suspicious. But I couldn't sleep, as an uneasy feeling rose in my chest. I had barely fallen asleep when I suddenly woke up gasping for air. My husband's face was right next to mine, his hands tightly around my neck, his eyes filled with hatred.
Give me back my life.
I struggled, feeling suffocated, nearly choking from the pressure. When I snapped awake in panic, my husband was no longer beside me. I looked at the clock. It was 9 a.m. He must have gone to work already. I decided to go out into the garden to get some fresh air and shake off the terrifying feeling. As soon as I opened the door, I saw the neighbor and his wife standing outside.
Hello. We're planning to renovate our house. We wanted to come over and get some ideas on how you decorate your home. Would that be all right?
So, he had a family. My husband was right. I had just overthought everything. Of course, come on in. But once inside, I had the unsettling feeling that they were looking for something. It made me feel confused and uncomfortable. When we entered the kitchen, the neighbor opened the refrigerator and his expression changed instantly. He turned to his wife and screamed that there was a body in the fridge. Suddenly, a sharp pain shot through my head, and countless memories flooded back. A few days earlier, I had discovered my husband's affair, and during an argument, I had unintentionally killed him. To avoid being caught, I hid the body in the fridge and dug up the garden to bury it. But overwhelmed with grief, I had completely forgotten what I had done. I began to have hallucinations, believing my husband was still by my side.